The journey of the spirit can be very tiring because of lack of support and useless opposition. Albert Einstein said, "Great spirits have always encountered violent opposition from mediocre minds, and you are surrounded by an ocean of mediocre minds. You have to battle with energies within, and you have to take opposition from energies outside. Your soul becomes a battlefield for all these forces clashing with each other. In order to survive, you start looking for a way that is less consuming and more enduring, a way in which you come across the least amount of obstacles and can get the maximum done from the laws of the universe. And that way is surrender." Now let us compare a common man with a Buddha. The common man eats food and drinks water. So does Buddha. The common man sleeps at night and is active during the day. So is the Buddha. The common man feels the heat of a summer and the cold of a winter. So does the Buddha. In the life of both, there are events that bring happiness and there are those that bring sadness. Both use the same means of living and communication. Occasionally, they both fall sick and become inactive. Both have likes, dislikes, choices, and preferences. As far as the body is concerned, they both live and both die. Then where is the difference? Well, the difference is very subtle and very great. The common man is a body with a soul, and the Buddha is a soul with a body. The common man is living alone, but the Buddha is in tune with the whole of the universe. The common man is tussling with the laws of the creation, while the Buddha has surrendered to them. The common man identifies with his body and is therefore mortal. The Buddha identifies with his spirit and is therefore immortal. The taste of a surrender does not belong to this world. We know about the sweet, salty, sour, and bitter. We know the taste of sleep and the taste of sex. We know the taste of thoughtlessness that comes from alcohol and the alertness that comes from things like caffeine. But the taste of surrender is unknown to us. If there is something very close to it, then it is love. When people fall in love, they surrender. But that surrender is so fragile and brittle. A simple incident of unfaithfulness could shatter it into pieces. The surrender of a truth seeker is eternal. It cannot be shattered. Once it has happened forever. Once you have truly understood the perfection of God, there is no way you could doubt it. Once you have established a communion with your source, there is no way it could be broken. To be frank, I was very ambitious as a musician. I wanted to be nothing less than a Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan. That ambition was responsible for all my learning in the field of music. But it also became my pain. Shri Ram Das is offering very valuable insight when he says, "We are always one thought away from our source." My ambitions were robbing me of every chance to get in touch with the now. I was over-occupied with the future and its uncertainty. I was simply unable to figure out how much I was supposed to do and how much was I supposed to leave in the hands of God. If I looked at people, I felt as if I was a prodigal. If I looked at saints, I felt as if I was greedy and too supersaturated with desires. It really took me years to solve this puzzle and realize that what I actually wanted was something that had nothing to do with music. It was abundance. Now I had been programmed for scarcity by my surroundings during my childhood, though no one intended to do so. And I had to live with that psyche for 40 years. I had my necessities, but the enoughness I so much longed for was missing. I wanted to help others and give to the needy, but couldn't afford. I started looking for the root of the problem and discovered that the sources I was connected to were all cut off from abundance. The people I expected help from were all stingy and were clinging to their material possessions. I myself was cut off from the infinite generosity of the source due to my poor thinking. With the blessings of Satguru Jagjit Singh Ji and with great assistance from Dr. Wayne Dyer's words, I found out that in a very strange way, I was not letting abundance flow into my life. I saw that I needed to open my doors to the source that knows nothing about lack by surrendering to it. I'm trying to explain to you the different aspects of my life that have led me to let go and let God. One of them was my living in scarcity and longing for an abundance. Another was my licking the wounds of the past and not being able to forgive. It was not that I loved revenge, no, but I somehow found myself incapable of forgiving. I had become intolerant to human weaknesses and was occasionally driven crazy by the cunning, the wicked, and the oversmart. I was unable to ignore these imperfections in human nature. The truth is that I reached a point where I could stand almost no one other than kids. I felt as if everyone was manipulating me in some way or the other, and none of them was loyal to me or honest with me. I felt betrayed on a very large scale. Then one fine day, I woke up to what I had become, and I sincerely asked myself, if this is what you are, then what is compassion and where is it? I seriously thought about the question that if I was not compassionate and could not forgive, then what was it that I had achieved as a spiritualist? I found my direction in the being of those who belonged to a space from where you can be compassionate towards others and from where you can forgive others. After looking up at them, I looked back at myself and saw that I needed to accept whatever came my way and stay in a yes mode. I needed to get out of God's way and embrace everything with outstretched arms. I needed to stop seeing things as black and white, good and bad, holy and unholy, kind and cruel, and open my heart to all the paradoxes of life and all its dualities. I needed to include and expand. From where I am right this moment, when I look back at the world and at my own past, which was a part of this world, I can see that the backbone of most of the suffering is ego. We suffer because of the egos of others, and we suffer because of our own ego. Those sicknesses of lust, anger, greed, and attachment are equally killing, but the king of all sicknesses is ego. It is the one that sponsors the rest of them. Ego is like a huge bungalow in which all the rest live in rented rooms. It is the one that houses all of them. As long as you identify with this meanness, your life will suffer from self-absorption and localized desires. The bigger picture will never be available to you. Your life will be a continuous friction between your plans for yourself and God's plans for you. And this friction will surface in the form of ailments, fatigue, stress, and restlessness. I had lived all that for decades, and by 2010, I knew all my emotions by name. The only way to end this friction between my will and the divine will was to become an instrument for God to play His symphonies. I had to stop playing my own compositions. I had to give to God all the copyrights of my soul and let Him spend me on the rest of the existence the way He felt like. God knew my strengths and He knew my weaknesses. He knew my talents and He knew my limitations too. God knew how I could be of the maximum utility to the rest of His creation. But for Him to go on with His perfect plans, I had to get out of His way. I had to surrender. For someone who wants to stay in this world, seek pleasures of the senses, live on that level of consciousness and die an unconscious death, only to be reincarnated again and repeat the same syllabus once more, a surrender is not required. But as far as a truth seeker is concerned, surrender is the one and the only one way for a synchronization to happen between the soul and the source. Even according to ordinary physics, you know that if one body is vibrating at 200 Hz and the other at 2000 Hz, there can be no resonance between the two. The same law applies to spiritual science also. A man or a woman who has not surrendered to God can never be divine. God cannot enter the temple of your soul as long as you are there in it. You cannot save both your ego and your divinity. Now the problem is, how do you get out of God's way? The simplest way in which I can perceive and explain it is that you stop looking at yourself as a separate individual and try to understand that you are a part of the whole. You are in the scheme of the things, but not the scheme itself. Your likes and dislikes are not God's likes and dislikes. Your definitions of beauty and ugliness are not God's definitions. Your good and bads and your prejudices are not God's prejudices. As long as you see this world through the prism of your ego, you won't be able to see the world as it is. Your truth will remain your truth only. It may have nothing to do with the universal truth. As long as you carry your ego, you cannot claim to have known the truth. Truth is perceived in the absence of all perceptions and known in the absence of all knowledge. There is a very subtle difference between the path and the surrender. On the path, you try to reach out to God. You sing, you dance, you meditate, you become a devotee, and so on. But in the surrender, you do not reach out to God. You just allow God inside. As I am writing this, I don't think I have totally got out of God's way. I have only been able to realize that this is what I am supposed to do, and this is where I have been wrong throughout. If I were out, God would have been in, and if God were in, there would be bliss all over my words. But right now, there's only an experience. All the enlightened beings have emphasized on the power of now. In fact, Shri Ram Das was introduced to the world with his book, Be Here Now. They have said it again and again, that we are missing the real thing by not being present in the moment and swaying like a pendulum between the past and the future. So what would it take us to be totally available to the moment? It is a surrender, a trust in the source, a trust that everything will be taken care of and there is no need to worry about the details of life. Anyway, it is all taken care of. But when I don't trust, when I don't surrender, I'm only available to my thoughts. I'm not available to the moment. I'm not available to the source. The distance between me and the moment is maintained. In other words, my trust has failed the test of now.